Okay, welcome again. This is Larry, and we're going to do Contact Report 104. This is translated by the DeepL translator. Corrections and improvements made by Catherine Mossman and Joseph Darmanin. And the contact person is Quetzal again. I'm thinking it's gonna be Quetzal for a while until Semyazi gets back on her feet. So we'll go as we go. Okay, this was Saturday, the 18th of March, 1978, at 03:32 in the morning. It's always like middle of the night. Okay, Quetzal. First, I have some things to discuss with you that are very unpleasant in nature, but for which you have been able to prepare for months. You have been told several times that Billy must go well if it lasts until the middle of the year. Quetzal, that is of correctness, but it is already there. Billy, I could figure that out for myself. I was even pretty sure that the blow would come today. Quetzal, it is very unfortunate, but the fault lies with those concerned themselves, because they do not follow the instructions we give and do not follow the teaching in the form we expect them to. This leads them to ambivalence and hopelessness, where they also completely misjudge the truth of the matter and no longer seek that which is faulty in themselves, where it actually lies, but seek it without exception from others, which in turn leads to discord and false accusations. But I would like to discuss these issues with you without mentioning them later in the report. Billy, that is fine with me, but there have been differences regarding the last reports. For example, you get upset from different sides because you praised my cannibal, in parentheses, Billy's wife's nickname, parentheses, so much. But some of them got really excited about the report because you said that many of them could not understand the things you said about what happened that night when the Giza twits wanted to smash our building. Quetzal, such emotions are anchored in envy and incomprehension. Billy, you may be right, but several people accused me of only praising others but not themselves. Quetzal, praise can only be given where it is appropriate. When I therefore praise your cannibal in several ways, it is based on a very good justification, as I think, although you occasionally judge everything differently when we talk about it purely privately, because you still have doubts. And as it must be, I praise her another time, for her achievements outstrip those of all the others, and no one deserves such praise as she does. Her progress in every form exceeds our wildest expectations, and accordingly she shall be rewarded by my praise. But those who are therefore displeased with her are very far behind her and, according to your language, are not able to give her cold water. There is no excuse for the action of such a resentment, nor is there any excuse for the fact that thoughts reign over previous events, which are still very awake in some and should be the reason why these previous events are not forgotten. In recent months, your wife has made progress that no longer justifies remembering old negative events in such a form that they are considered unforgiving. But anyone who still sticks to these memories of all negative events with the excuse that these things cannot be forgotten so quickly is very timid, unknowledgeable, and inhibited to progress. These persons take the right, which is not theirs, to live only for themselves and to make mistakes. But they are also the ones in your group who are the least subject to the rules we have given, and who thus create strife. There is evil dissatisfaction in them with themselves and with all outsiders. But perhaps the coming time will bring them improvement and change in this respect if they stand aside from the group for some time and only receive what the events bring, so to speak, on the fringes. It was unavoidable for me to discuss these matters with Semyazi as well, but despite her regret, she also found no other advice than a temporary step aside is the only acceptable and valuable thing, but that this time should be used for a full transformation and change. Billy, well, I cannot say anything about that if you have that opinion. By the way, someone else said that it was very incorrect to speak of one or the other outflanking or outstripping the rest of the group in terms of progress. Besides, despite my love for my wife, I also have my doubts, as I have often told you in confidence, as you rightly mentioned earlier. And I have doubts despite the visible successes because I know her acting ability. So I only hope that you and all the others are not deceived. How can they be deceived? They're in her head. They can read her thoughts. Kind of hard to deceive somebody that knows exactly what you're thinking. That buffer between verbal language is gone. There's no hiding anything from these people if they want to know. Okay, Quetzal. That is, on the one hand, thought and spoken by you very timidly, and on the other hand, the spoken words of the group members are incorrect. Because if a group member really tries to make progress and also brings good success, then this happens not only in the interest of the person concerned, but to a very large extent also in the interest of all group members. The Earth human, on the other hand, is still very biased in the arrogance of the status, which is why envy and irrationality are also still so great. Therefore it happens that praise for a truly good achievement generates envy, although such praise is pronounced only if it is justified in any form connected with it. If it is mentioned that one group member has outperformed the other in progress, then this corresponds to a clear statement and fact, which must in no way arouse envy, but only joy for that member who accomplishes this achievement. And on the other hand, it should also be an incentive for the others to emulate the powerful group member. If, however, this is not done in this manner, but is talked and thought ill favorably of, then this testifies to the fact that there is still a very weak knowledge in this respect and no great observance of the rules, but that there is also a rather regrettable lack of understanding of love. Billy, well, that would not be very much appreciated, although I must confess that even your explanation seems quite plausible to me. But something different. What about lectures in Cloton, where I go there to hold such lectures? You know, my dream of that time, is the danger still there? You once told me that I could give lectures if they did not refer to ufology. Quetzal, that is of correctness. You can give lectures outside your center again, but be very careful. The danger you mentioned has not been removed, but you may dare to go to that region. Greater danger threatens you in your living area, which is why you should exercise much greater caution in it. Billy, well, then something else. I do not know what it is about, but I should pay you Elsie's dearest thanks, because as she says, you have helped her a lot in the last few days. Quetzal, no thanks are necessary, but you should pass on my dear greetings to her. My thanks are also due to all the others who have made a special effort to carry out our mission. Thus, Engelbert is to be mentioned, who is constantly striving very hard, as well as Elsa, Guido, and your wife, who are always striving very hard for all kinds of concerns in connection with your center. Engelbert deserves special praise for his hard work without complaints regarding the production of his writings, whereby his wife Mary and his descendants often help him in the final processing, and I would like to express my gratitude to them for this. However, Bernadette, to whom I would also like to express my gratitude, is also involved in many activities, as is Jacobus, although he often causes me and also Semyazi and Ptah serious worries, especially recently, which is why I also had to reprimand him recently. Nor should we forget Claire, who has distinguished herself here and there through manual activity up to now, but who has been causing us a great deal of worry for some time, and especially at present. She should make an extremely concentrated effort to change, because all evil lies in her alone. Billy, I know that, my son, and I also explained it to her. It seems, however, that my explanations were fruitless, because now she is even deeper in the bind. Quetzal, your explanations to them are known to me, for I tried to monitor them myself. It is very unfortunate that she does not follow your advice and does not accept your words. Mistakenly, she digs her thoughts into forms of remorse and fear, although I know you have explained everything very truthfully. But if she does not change very quickly and follow your advice and explanations, everything will collapse for her. In order to achieve success, however, she must become more truthful and not only build a feigned solution on third and a half things. Let me do that again. In order to achieve success, however, she must become more truthful and not only build a feigned solution on third and a half things. Billy, it is pretty bad with her, but the mistake lies with her alone. Today, I even expect her to absent herself from our regular group meeting with a half-truthful cancellation, because last night I caught such impulses, and I certainly was not mistaken, but Quetzal, we would be better talk about these things later. Quetzal, I already spoke about this at the beginning, but there is still something to say. Every group member should, in future, make a very strict effort, on the one hand, to strictly follow the given rules of order, but on the other hand, also make an effort to take up the teaching completely through an exact study and to live by it according to the given possibility. Only in this manner will each member of the group do justice to our entire and all tasks in the individual case and in the community. In every respect, much more attention should be paid to what I have to say and what I explain, and inappropriate speeches that I am too harsh in tone should be avoided. Quetzal's not soft like Semyazi. Semyazi could bite, but Quetzal, he's a guy, he's a bit more aggressive than she was. Anyway, I don't know if it's because he's a guy, but he is a bit more aggressive than Semyazi was. And he can be a bit grumpier too. Okay, I know very well how things stand and what tone to apply. And if one were to be opposed to this and not accept it, then I would have to retreat and give in to the former urge that many of us wanted, namely that contacts should be broken off. It is not acceptable for reproaches to be made against us in relation to our tone and conduct when we are right. And I have often heard such expressions of different group members during occasional checks. The Earth human, and also many of the group members, is not yet so mature that he would be able to act without decisive provisions, according to which it is urgently necessary that tougher demands be made, which will also happen from Semyazi's side when she returns here in the middle of May and continues her task. So it would be pointless to want to include her in the scope that she would behave differently than me in the future, because all the very unfortunate events in the last months of your group by the party, quite evil, treacherous machinations of the fallible ones, require a much harder action, otherwise everything would be destroyed. The chaff will finally have to separate from the grain, and you will have to take this separation by your own hand, as you were told months ago. I think he's talking about kicking some people out of the group. Really needs to do it. Anyway, and the one who does not strive in a good and authoritative manner for teaching and rule observance, not only endangers the existence of the group, but also our entire and common mission, which is why it is no longer acceptable for them, the treacherous, fallible ones, to stay longer in the group. But on the other hand, those fallible ones determine this for themselves, who do not strive for everything in an honest manner, but only make demands, are treacherous, and believe themselves to be privileged, which this is why they exclude themselves from our entire community, and thus destroy their entire future for very many incarnations to come. For what is given to them by the center will not be given to them another time. Any member that departs maliciously, treacherously, and slanderously from the group in the final sense for more than 8 months shall not find any way back in this life in the future, for they may under no circumstances be accepted into the group either now or in the present future. For if they do not prove themselves now and in the hardest time, they will not do something later or in the future, for every day lost to them in the community removes them even more from it, and this difference can no longer be made up. This also applies to those who maliciously want to stand aside for a certain time in the future, so that after a period of 8 months, if they do not return to the group permanently and from then on, and following all the rules, they may not be taken back into the group again. This does not mean that their swinging wave quanta will be erased from the Sohar Center, but it does mean that they cannot be given any more opportunity to ever make up missed swinging wave deposits in the present or in the future. Anyone who is so subject to that of the material realm and his or her own character weaknesses, etc., that he or she does not want to fully and completely commit themselves to the good cause at the present time will not be able to do so in the future either. It is very regrettable to have to state this, but an overview of the very disadvantageous changes in the last few years in some people has shown this. Time is pressing more and more, and no consideration should be given to it in the future. Anyone who does not finally concern themselves with an effort to fit into the given rules of order and to use the given doctrine to the best extent of their studies cannot be given any further assistance. So it would be better for them to say, in Emmanuel's words, that a millstone will be hung around their necks, and they will sink into the floods of the sea. It must therefore be the case in the future that the members of the group will become one, that the time has finally come when the chaff separates from the grain. Whoever is therefore the grain will in future make a decisive effort to deal with all matters without contradiction, otherwise a departure from the group is inevitable. Only thus can the fulfillment of following the rules and fulfilling all our missions come about. But this means that a meeting of all group members takes place as in the earlier time, as it was given in the first mission time. Considering the present situation, this cannot happen in exactly the same framework as at that time that is understandable to us, but it should and must be in such a form that each group member appears in the center more often and as far as possible without untruthful evasions, in order to thus guarantee the unity of belonging together. For various group members, it is given that they could come to the center more often than they do. It is solely up to their sense of responsibility towards our common mission, whether they want to take the trouble or not without untruthful excuses. This sense of responsibility is peculiar to only a few who should also be named here, so Guido, Engelbert, Elsa, and Maria. But all the others, except those who reside in the center, regularly invent excuses not to have to appear at the center, and then feel disadvantaged and notice that they have lost the union with all the others, thereby building up offended emotions and becoming convinced that the others are to blame for it, although the fault lies solely and exclusively with them, the fallible ones themselves without exception. In the future, I will be forced to give orders myself for work to be done, such as manual work and lectures, etc., and I will assign the work to certain members of the group myself, always according to their ability and mastery of the activity in question. You shall therefore draw up for me, from time to time, an activity plan on the work to be carried out, after which I shall give instructions as to who shall carry it out. For if it is finally to go ahead without greater obstacles in every respect, then no other way remains open. But those who refuse to observe my instructions are not honestly concerned with teaching their own progress and our common task, which is why there can be no further stay for the respective group members in the group. For it is in no form a matter of only making profit out of everything. However, no relevant contribution of one's own is made. Those who are aware of their full responsibility in every respect, and unfortunately, these are only a few, first and foremost, Elsa, Engelbert, and Guido, followed by your wife, Maria, Jacobus, and Bernadette. With Marcel, there are still various family matters to clear up, but also with Claire. With the others, the sense of responsibility is very deep, but so is the sense of togetherness. I am very sorry about the whole thing, but it turned out that no advice is successful, and I, therefore, have to take over the necessary instructions. Billy, that is all sorts of things, my son, but it will be like that if you say so. It is also really urgent that something should finally be done, otherwise our lot will rush between all the chairs and benches another time. Quetzal, that is of correctness. Billy, well, some will not be very happy, but tell me, Quetzal, can you also penetrate other dimensions with this old box? He's talking about Manara's ship, Manara's beam ship. Well, some will not be very happy, but tell me, Quetzal, can you also penetrate other dimensions with this old box? Quetzal, your question is not logical. What do you want to ask? Billy, it makes me wonder whether you can also travel to the past and the future with Manara's ship. Quetzal, it is possible, but why do you ask? When you ask such questions, there is a certain intention behind it. Do you want to ask me if I am going with you on a journey into the future or the past? Billy, exactly, my son. Quetzal, so, ... That is why you brought this big photographic apparatus with you. Billy, exactly, son, but that is not as complicated a thing as you say. It's just a damn normal camera. Quetzal, that is the same thing, but ... Where do you want to go? Billy, to Frisco, my son, to San Francisco, but to the future, namely to the time when the city was destroyed by the great earthquake. I would be interested to know what everything looks like when the first heavy quake is over, and that is exactly what I want to photograph. That would be safe, would it not? And it certainly would not matter if I publish these pictures if they become something, no? Quetzal, there is certainly nothing wrong with that, because a lot of people would still leave San Francisco and settle elsewhere before the catastrophe comes. It would save a lot of lives. Of course, I agree with that, but it takes several hours if I want to go there with you. This old ship, I do not have another one available at the moment, needs a longer preparation time, after which you will only be back in normal time at dawn. Billy, It does not matter because you can bring me back at about the same time as you got me out of bed. Quetzal, that would be possible. Billy, well, then I could go get some sleep, too. So let us go. Quetzal, as you like, but we cannot have a conversation in the meantime. Billy, anyway, let us go. I am tense like a string before it bursts. Quetzal, so be it. You are truly tireless. Quetzal, we are here about 300 kilometers from San Francisco. Down there you can see the fissures of the earth as they have existed for a long time. And what you see are expansions of the so-called San Andreas Fault, which has bulged up the Earth's surface. Billy, can I photograph that? Quetzal, there is nothing wrong with that, except that you could also put it on film at your present time in 1978, because the changes are extremely small and hardly noticeable on the photos. Billy, nevertheless, I would like to photograph it. Quetzal, then do it. Come here, look, here, this floor hatch, as you can see, after the plate has been pushed aside, it releases this finely dotted viewing plate through which you can look directly outside. You can photograph through it. Billy, I do, Quetzal, but you know that when I take pictures in the ship, they are always very blurred and blurred afterwards. Is there no other possibility? Do you know that I might be able to get off? Quetzal, you have the best overview from above, here from the ship. On the other hand, this time you will bring sharp and clear pictures onto your film because the propulsion of this ship does not affect your film by radiating. You just have to make sure that you do not photograph directly under the drive surface because the very strong light radiation could affect the film. The slightest damage to the film could be that the finished images would appear to be illuminated by a light source. In the worst case, an overexposure would occur. Billy, is it the light that goes so far down there and looks like a spotlight? Quetzal, that is of correctness, so make sure that these light masses do not reach your shooting range. Billy, I will try, ... Quetzal, are you finished with your work? Billy, I am, my son. Maybe I was not careful enough about the light. Somehow it seemed to me as if I had always seen a glimmer of light in the lens. Quetzal, then try again. Billy, nah, let's go to Frisco first. I only have one film with me and a normal negative film. Quetzal, as you like. Move away from the hatch. Dash. So, dash. Good. It. ... Billy, man, that is crazy. Look, everything is burning up ahead. Quetzal, there is San Francisco. Well, here we are. Now take your pictures. Billy, man, Quetzal, that looks a lot worse than I thought. But listen, somewhere there must be a structure known as America Building or something like that. Take me there. That is what I want to photograph above all so that no one can come and claim that I took pictures of the last big quake at the turn of the century. Quetzal, here we are, my friend, but this time pay more attention to the light source. Billy, I will try to. ... Billy, thanks, Quetzal. That is enough. Just go back a bit. Well, yes. ... Moment. ... Good. Now fly over there to the right. ... Good. Thank you. Man, that is gigantic. The horrible destruction. ... Thank you, Quetzal. I have some pictures again. That should be enough. Please fly back again to the funny bulges of the San Andreas Fault. Quetzal, as you like, but keep in mind that we are already exceeding our time, and I have to make the preparations for the return journey. Billy, all right, Quetzal, you can start as soon as we get there. I want to see everything again. How quickly half an hour passes in the future. Quetzal, the time is the same. It only appears to you much shorter through what you have seen. Billy, of course. I know that. Ah, here we are. Just do your job now. Dot, dot, dot. Quetzal. So, my friend, here we are again. We are here about 30 minutes earlier than you left your warm bed. Billy, then we can use the rest of the time to discuss those issues you wanted to keep secret. Let me pause for a second. They're back in the normal time, 30 minutes before he got out of bed. So that means there is two Billies in this normal time right now. I don't know how he ends up back in bed. It's kind of different, but maybe we'll get to it. Billy, then you can use the rest of the time to discuss those issues you wanted to keep secret. Quetzal, that was also my intention. Billy, well then, I have 2 or 3 questions before. First, about Coney. What about his times in the center? Quetzal, my calculations gave him very extraordinary data, according to which he had to follow every second day for 2 months for the duration of 3 hours and 58 minutes of the power release. In case of a failure, he would have to make up 19 whole periods. The times are calculated from today, starting at 0045 hours. Billy, man, that is all sorts of things. Is it really that bad with him? Quetzal, unfortunately, yes, because he did not trouble himself to learn everything. On the one hand, he lacks the necessary initiative and energy, and on the other hand, he is so bound to material interests that this part is much more important to him than his life. Billy, I thought something similar, and especially in this respect. I am sure that he will not come again today with, parentheses, he will have some kind of lazy excuse. And if that is the case, then he can give me as long as he wants, because then I will let him go. Let him then see where his next incarnation and the following ones will lead him. If he already has to catch up 19 times for a missed time, then that, within only 2 months, then that means that he will not be able to do that, because with certainty he is already absent today, as I already said. Quetzal, slowly you also seem to become reasonable in certain things. Billy, why? Quetzal, that you no longer unnecessarily go into the unreasonableness of those who do not strive for everything in an honest form. You should really be less indulgent, but show a certain hardness. You would have much less trouble and worry to cope with. Billy, in the meantime, I have recognized that I will behave more according to your advice from now on. Billy, let's try that again. In the meantime, I have recognized that, and I will behave more according to your advice from now on. But now, my second question, regarding work performance. Are you really convinced that it is unavoidable that you give the necessary instructions yourself? Quetzal, that is not a question, because it is our unanimous decision. Unfortunately, there are only a few group members that I can exclude from these orders, because they truly become aware of their duties in a remarkably good form and with a great sense of responsibility themselves, and, as a rule, unsolicited, such as Elsa, Engelbert, Guido, your wife, and Maria. Furthermore, Bernadette, Jacobus, and Claire are also educated in this respect in good form. Billy, so this means that you want to exclude the aforementioned from your orders? Quetzal, that is of correctness, because their sense of duty is very well developed, except for Claire, who has to make a lot of effort, and not only in these matters. However, her sense of duty begins to work, which is why I also had to name her. Billy, I think that is very fair, my son, but listen, you twit. Our dear Elsa is not Elsa with us, but simply Elsie. Please also call the girl that. You know, Elsa sounds so strange. Quetzal, I am happy to comply with your wish, so Elsa is Elsie. Billy, well roared, Lion. Elsie will also be happy about it. but so will my cannibal and everyone else. And if I am already with Elsie, do you have any idea how the name Kalanka or Kalanka could be related to her? Quetzal, you asked me about things you should explore yourself. Billy, I did, because otherwise I would not know that name. Quetzal, dash, 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 huh? I do not understand. Billy, is that really not understandable? I just told you two names, and I figured them out myself. Quetzal, oh, of course. You confused me. The name Kalanka is correct. About 2,000 years ago, this was a nickname for the personality of Elsie at that time. This is an old Russian Greek name, and it is not pronounced with the written K, but with the letter G. So I guess it'd be Galanka. This nickname was given to her because the family of her father was called Galanka. Her own name at that time was Magdalena Elizabeth Maria. Billy, I know that. Thank you, but you confirmed it to me anyway. You know, I should have been doing research on everyone's earlier data for a long time, but I just have not found the time yet. Quetzal, by the middle of this year, you should nevertheless manage it. But you are running out of time, so I will help you. Therefore, make sure that you have the necessary life data from all group members by the 3rd of April. Then I will assist you. Billy, and if I do not have this data, by which you mean the curriculums, by the 3rd of April, then what? Quetzal, but of those who have no data by that date, no research will be done, with no exceptions. We must finally be consistent in all things. Billy, Quetzal, is that your last word? Quetzal, no doubt. But now, hear what I have to say to you. And in parentheses, here Quetzal gives explanations that Olgi and Margaret will leave the group soon. However, Claire and Marcel will also leave. In parentheses. Billy, I really expected that, Quetzal. I remember very well that you, Semyazi, and also Ptah told me that it would have to go that way. It would have to go well if it was to be mid-1978 before it happened. Quetzal, you said that already, but now go sleep. Now go and sleep for a few more hours. Goodbye, my friend, and before I go, I would like to send very dear greetings and loving solidarity from Semyazi and Ptah to all group members, whereby also the fallible ones should be included. Billy, thank you, Quetzal. Thank you very much. Take care now, and let us not wait so long for you again. Quetzal, we will see. Goodbye, and do not worry too much about what is coming, not even about those of this evening, because despite everything, this currently very regrettable matter will still result in good fortune. Billy, bye, my friend. You are a damn nice guy. Quetzal, especially pay my dear greetings and wishes to your cannibal. She was very brave and did a wonderful job. And what I still want to say, I also greet Elsie and Bernadette lovingly, and I thank them, whereby especially Elsie very well knows for what. But Engelbert and Jacobus should not be forgotten either, nor Mary, who stood by you that night as ... Billy, man, shut up. You have, excuse me, so you have said that right again. But what do you actually say to that, huh? Quetzal, it is very remarkable how you are constantly working day and night, seemingly without getting tired. Billy, is that all? Quetzal, that is all I have to explain. Billy, you just accept it? Quetzal, why should I not? You have done a job that serves all our missions, and it was your only solution. Billy, Quetzal, you are just a piece of gold. But why do you actually know about this not exactly easy work? Quetzal, Engelbert did not keep his thoughts under control, which is why I was able to register them. He thought too much about me. Billy, okay, then everything is clear. Quetzal, nevertheless, you should only work so hard in emergencies. Billy, these are absolute exceptions in this crazy form. Engelbert was completely exhausted after work and soaked with sweat. That is how he worked. Quetzal, this is also understandable. I myself would not be able to do such a hard job, which is why I would use my equipment. Billy, you easily say that, but we still have to use quite primitive tools. But now take care, I'm dog tired. Quetzal, goodbye, my friend. Enjoy a restful sleep. And in this contact report, that's the end of contact report. Which one we doing? 104? Yeah, 104. This is the end of contact report 104, but there's also on the Future of Mankind website, there's a blurb about the San Francisco earthquake photos by Wendell Stevens, Wendell C. Stevens. And I guess I can read through that. The mysterious time photos from the future destruction of San Francisco in a great earthquake have always been highly controversial. We, that is, Lee Elders, myself, and Britt Nielsen, were at the farm in Schmidrudy one evening in 1978 when Mr. Meyer mentioned time travel and a trip he had taken with the Pleiadians to view the great San Francisco earthquake predicted for the future, which he said he had been allowed to photograph with his own camera. We, of course, insisted on seeing the photographs and continued to do so until Meyer left the room and came back with one of those Photoshop return envelopes in his hand. It contained the pictures still in it, together with the negatives. He had taken these pictures on negative film in contrast to his earlier photographing of the spacecraft on ASA 100 positive slide transparency film. He opened the envelope and spread out 11 color prints on the kitchen table there. He said that they were pictures of the future San Francisco quake. Then he passed them around the table one by one to all of us to examine. There were at least 9 to 10 people sitting around that table at that time, which included his wife Calliope, Engelbert, and his wife Maria, Jacobus, Bernadette, and a couple more whose names I do not remember. I carefully studied each picture as they came to me, trying to recognize familiar landmarks and buildings and any prominent new structures I had never seen before. I looked carefully at cars shown in the streets below for style and configurations not familiar at the time. I did see smaller cars with smoothly rounded corners and no external projections, and some of these had half glass and others full glass cabin tops, making them look more like bugs than boxy cars. I saw the World Trade Center building cracked through its steep pyramidal shape from upper right to lower left from the viewer's angle, and another big rectangular building with higher rectangular towers on either end, collapsing in the middle and taking the two towers down with it. There was shooting flame, black and light smoke, and water and gas spewing from broken pipes, and there was a lot of dust rolling out from the collapsing rectangular building. We passed the pictures around a second time, and we all studied them again, and then Mr. Meyer collected them up, put them back in the envelope, and took the envelope back out of the kitchen once more. We were all in shock at what we had just seen, and discussed it only briefly before that meeting broke up and all went to bed for the night. A few days after that, Meyer was summoned to a new contact and was asked to bring the photographs with him, which he did. The visitors wanted to have their scientists look at the pictures too, and they took the negatives and prints with them. When Meyer tried to get the pictures back, he was rebuked for showing them to us without their approval and against their instructions not to do so until after the event. Those pictures have never been returned to him. Thus today we do not have any solid evidence that those pictures were ever taken. A year later, on another trip to Switzerland, our attention this is a writing by Wendell Stevens, who kind of headed up a major investigation into Billy and his sightings and his kind of everything. A year later, on another trip to Switzerland, our attention was called to an article in a copy of European edition of Geo magazine, which carried a painting of the future destruction of San Francisco that was remarkably similar to one of Meyer's photographs, the one showing the steep pyramidal World Trade Center building coming down. I was amazed at the close similarity to the one I had seen in Meyer's house the year before, but could not revisualize the detail seen well enough to make a valid comparison. I later obtained copies of the Geo magazine and then remembered that the article there only one painting of the destruction bled over 2 pages, whereas I had seen 11 pictures in Meyer's house. Now, where did he get the other 10 if, as his accusers say, he copied the pictures from the Geo magazine article? When Meyer asked the Pleiadians about this, they said that any artists or real sensitives seeking such information could tap into the same reality and get the same pictures because they do now exist in our future time. I don't think a great many people actually saw those dozen photographs in Meyer's house, which looked very real to me, like real photographs, not photographs of paintings, and maybe no more than the few around the kitchen table that night. All others would very likely come to the conclusion that those pictures were the one and the same. But there are at least 10 people who do know otherwise, and I am one of these. Mr. Meyer sincerely believes that he took a trip in time during this contact, but this was not the first, and so he was not entirely unfamiliar with the phenomenon of time travel. There are 2 schools of thought concerning this exotic condition. One is that time is a structured, inflexible, linear phenomenon that cannot be altered or changed. Those will choose to believe that if this is not an outright falsification, then it is at best a manipulated condition like the virtual realities we are just beginning to experiment with, or that it is a very real projection from stored memory using quite sophisticated 3D viewing systems. The other concept is that time indeed is a flexible, non-linear phenomenon that is navigable like space, and that once we know what time is and how to use it, we can really go back and forth in time and perceive events there. In another discussion of time and space, Mr. Meyer was told that just like there are milestones in space, there are confluences in time. And just like we can get to a given destination in space by many routes, we can get to a given point in time by different confluences. It was suggested that space and time are opposite aspects of the same phenomenon, like matter and energy, and that once we understand the phenomenon, we can navigate time as we now do with space. When we learn its nature, we will be able to convert space and time to space to time, and time to space as we choose. In fact, it was suggested that an understanding of this phenomenon will be necessary before we can really undertake interstellar travel. We live between the extremes of time and space, and we cannot travel in one without influencing the other. When we move in space, it takes time, and any movement in time shifts space. A new book, Astrometrics of Undiscovered Planets and Intelligent Life Forms by Dr. Yuri Danjo and Colonel Ron Blackburn, USA retired, attempts to apply new formulas to understand these relationships and other exotic phenomena such as size and other apparently limiting conditions. You will need to be a very good mathematician to understand these concepts. Okay, so that is it for Contact Report 104, plus a little blurb here at the end by Wendell Stevens about the pictures of the San Francisco earthquake, the coming San Francisco earthquake. Now, I was thinking maybe they were talking about the one that happened in like the year 2000, 2001, something like that. I forget when that one actually was. But according to these pictures, the entire city is gone. It's flat wasted. All the skyscrapers have come down. All the buildings are collapsed. And it's all on fire. So I don't think this earthquake that he's talking about has occurred yet. I think that's coming. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I remember being in San Diego and feeling an earthquake. And San Francisco lost a bunch of highways and a bunch of people were killed. But I don't think that was the major earthquake. I think there's a major one still coming, which the city is completely wiped out. So, anyway, Contact Report 104. And as usual, I read this off of www.futureofmankind.co.uk/Billy_contact_report_104. And I'll put the link in I'll put the link down in the description as well, so you can check out those pictures. The pictures in this one are not Billy's actual photos because he lost them. They took them back. Aaron took them back. But they are pictures that are very similar to ones Billy had. Okay, I'm thinking that's about it for tonight, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for hanging. See ya. Bye.